Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Mandalorian recap show. Where we break down the latest episodes of Star Wars The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. We're going to be talking about The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 2, Chapter 10, whatever you want to call it, titled The Passenger. It's directed by Peyton Reed, and many of us were looking forward to see what he was going to do in the Star Wars universe, and, well, we found out last night. So we're going to break it down in all its goodness here. But before we go any further here, if this is your first time checking out the FilmSpeak channel, thanks for joining us. We do these Mandalorian recaps on a weekly basis, and we like to say here that the conversation continues after the credits, and of course we'd like to have you all be a part of that conversation. So consider subscribing to the channel so for more insight, analysis, interviews behind your favorite movies. All right, a little disclaimer here. There is construction going on above me. My landlord decided to just randomly 7:30 in the morning decide replacing floors above us. So I woke up to a lot of sawing and pulling up of carpet and everything, and so that was a delay. And so I think we should be good for a short window here. So we're going to try and get through this really quick. But if there is some noise, I will try and mute it when I can. So apologies in advance. But as you guys know, I don't do these recaps alone. I am joined, as always, by Elliott from Movie Files. Elliott, how's it going, man?
Hey, what's up, man? Hey, they're pulling up the floors above you, and we'll be breaking down this episode here for you all. So, yeah, man, excited to talk about this episode. We were funny. We were talking about it last night. Like, I wonder when Peyton Reed's going to come into the mix, and lo and behold, here he is, man. So, yeah, we'll definitely break it down, man. I'm excited to kind of get your full thoughts on this passenger episode.
Right, for sure. And again, guys, be sure to let us know your thoughts and opinions on tonight's episode, or I guess today's episode, down in the comment section below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? All that stuff. I'm sure it's going to be one of those ones where it's definitely going to be some of people's least favorite episodes. It was just like very unremarkable in that regard. And so, but again, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe you all love this one. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts, opinions down in the comment section below. Okay, Elliott, let's get right into this thing. What were your overall thoughts of the episode?
So by far, I wasn't as connected to this episode as I was last week's premiere, which we talked about last week. Was so cinematic and just from beginning to end was just a fun journey. And just again, Jon Favreau having the camera was amazing. This time around, this really kind of the beat of the drum continues with the Star Wars Mandalorian show, where we got 3 or 4 of these last year, where we saw these kind of different directors that might have never played in this type of universe before, this grand type of scale, like a Bryce Dallas Howard. And we get that with Peyton Reed, who has a history of obviously with Marvel and Disney with Ant-Man, but he's a safe director, and this was a safe episode. This didn't really push the narrative forward. It didn't really have the biggest stakes. We knew they were going to make it, out of this planet and the spider and all that stuff, but it has some cool visuals. He has a little Ant-Man Easter egg with an Ant-Man. I called them Anthony, little Easter egg there. And again, I think this just goes to show that Star Wars is The Mandalorian is one of those things. I think you mentioned last week, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, they have their Star Wars toys, and they're bringing their friends to play in this universe with them. Some of the episodes will be very pivotal to the storyline, to the series. Some of the episodes just kind of one-off, isolated, fun, kind of nothing to do with the narrative, and just having, again, Peyton Reed show his flexing his skills on as the director. So, an okay episode, I guess.
I mean, like, I kind of appreciated the singularity of it. It was just like a little, tip of the hat to Alien. I actually think in my notes I wrote down Prometheus, because I just think that the vibe reminded me a little bit more of Prometheus than it did Alien. But regardless, it's the same sort of, Ridley Scott horror elements of it. I didn't like the episode. I actually would go as far as to say that I hated it. It was. If there was ever one episode in this series that basically encapsulated everything I dislike about this show, it would be this one. There's no stakes. It's just really safe. There was some annoying characters. I really dislike the
Patty
the fly.
Mono.
Yeah, what's her name?
They love her. The actress is a great comedian, but apparently they love her. So they keep bringing. I think they think this is like her humor, or
she feels like she's in a completely different series. Every time she's on screen and she's interacting with characters in Mando, I feel like I'm watching like, you know, I'm in the queue for a ride at Disney World, and they show this like thing that pops up on screen, and she's like giving you information about what the ride is going to go through from a story standpoint.
Yeah,
that's what I seriously dislike her.
Jar Jar Binks for you in The Mandalorian, Griffin?
She might be, but you know, even Jar Jar Binks was a little more entertaining. Like, my God, this is just like cringeworthy. I don't know what that was, but yeah, so barring her, the frog lady, it was the kind of weird that like I can get behind in Star Wars, but I also like the only thing that I liked was that this episode really, from just like a general standpoint, was about, and as you can see, the thump from above me. That's great. Yeah. The episode was really just about parents and their children, and we got to see sort of like the parallels between like the frog lady protecting her babies, Mando with baby Yoda, and then even when we get to the ice planet and the spiders, which was a callback to Star Wars Rebels. For those of you who watched, that was a nice little tip of the hat to you guys. Get to see them in live action form. The spiders protecting their babies and all, and just sort of like the lengths that parents would go to. I got that, but it never like felt earned. Like the emotionality of it never really came through. It just felt like, okay, cool. So everyone's a parent, everyone has kids, and they're just protecting their children, and that's really the extent of what we're going with here.
Yeah, I agree with you there, man. With the frog lady, I think it almost would have probably played better if she had a physical child with her. The embryos, especially with baby Yoda, continuously eating her, the last of the species, which was kind of funny. But at a point, it's just like, dude, the baby Yoda's digestive system has to be all types of messed up. He just literally eats anything he sees. But I think if they would have had, if the frog lady had a child, and you know, it would have been a little bit more impactful if the stakes were there, if that child ate the embryo or ate one of the spider things. But yeah, just the fact that we didn't see her like a physical connection to anything besides these embryos that we don't even know if they're going to even come to life. The fact that, you know, we really don't know, this is the first time that we're meeting this character, and we're supposed to have this some type of feeling of like, oh, we hope nothing happens to her, but it's just like we just met her. So it is just, again, just a very odd choice to kind of have this unimportant character be kind of the main kind of MacGuffin and kind of the object in this episode to move forward. So very interesting choice.
Yeah, it was really strange, and like like there was some good stuff in there about, you know, being the last of whatever, and like, you know, obviously Mando and baby Yoda being the last, or not last, but like, you know, Mando being disconnected from his people, and then baby Yoda obviously not really being with his people, and so like there was some nice stuff in here, but again, like they don't really explore it all that much. It's just it really comes down to just a lot of people sitting around acting like they're doing stuff, but nothing really happening. I will say the things that I did like about the episode were the X-wing sort of chase that was going on there. Yeah. That was a nice little piece of exhilarating entertainment.
Yeah, and I think what we have, Wolf and Dave Filoni's character kind of making an appearance with that X-wing chase.
So let me ask you about that. What did you think of when they first pulled Mando over and they were interrogating him about the razor and everything? I know they're supposed to be building tension. It's supposed to be a very edge of your seat moment. Didn't work for me at all. Yeah. It was really weird because, like, one, there was actually very little music used throughout this episode, especially during like crucial moments. And I think that can be a good thing, but it can also just make things feel very empty. And I think in this case, when, you know, when they're interrogating him and it's just him in the cockpit, and I know it's supposed to be very like original trilogy vibes for sure. I definitely got that, but it was like, there was no music, there was no sound or anything. The camera angles were very uninspired. They were just sort of just like, it just felt like really boring, you know? So like when they're trying to pull him over, and this is supposed to be like really tense, edge of your seat stuff, like, you know, this is the thing that he feared having happened to him was literally about to happen to him. He gets picked up, and it's just sort of like sitting there, and I'm just like, this isn't coming across the way that I think they were hoping, you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's supposed to be Mando getting pulled over by the police, right? The X-wings are asking for his beacon call because obviously after what happens with Return of the Jedi and the state of the galaxy, and it kind of played almost like they were trying to. It's weird. I found like they wanted to be tense filled, but then at the same time, I felt like it was supposed to be comedic, kind of like Taika Waititi's comedic vibes to it, where it's just like, okay, we'll wait.
Yeah,
We'll wait. It's just like it just was way too drawn out, like you said, and then once we kind of get the chase, it's just like, again, we kind of know where this is headed. He's going to make it out, but the setup, like you said, without the music, without the importance of this character being on board with them, and again, I see the connection with episode 6, and we get that kind of tie-in with episode 6 of last season with him, turned into prisoners and all that stuff. But yeah, just that scene in particular, it was just a little lackluster. But like I said, I got a kick out of seeing Dave Filoni make an appearance.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was fun to see. And the other thing I did like about it was like what you mentioned on like seeing how the New Republic is sort of formed and how they're operating in this space and whatnot. Sort of similar to how, in the first episode we got, the aftermath of Tatooine and like what was sort of happening there, once the Empire fell. But yeah, it didn't really work for me. And then when they show up later on as the the Deus Ex Machina to save the day, I was like, well, of course they're going to. But then also like it was such like a weird and awkward interaction. It felt I think this might be the first time I'm saying this for the show, but it felt like a fan film. Like with the two pilots sort of like talking with Mando. I was just like, what? This is like, you're like aiming for comedy here. It's not working. Yeah. The shots are really bizarre. I just, very, very little of this episode really worked for me in that regard. But I don't know. I don't know if you felt that way, but
yeah, I mean, again, I think it just goes to the fact that I think Peyton Reed, his sensibilities and I know you're a big fan of the Ant-Man franchise, and I love Ant-Man, the first one. But I think just from that hire alone, it just shows that he's in, especially in this kind of this landscape of Disney. I think he's a safe director. I think that he plays it safe. He can adapt to things pretty easily. He works well with people apparently coming in after Edgar Wright and having his chance to shine in Ant-Man 2. But I think he's just a very safe director, which makes me curious on, again, what the intentions of these Star Wars directors coming in to maybe direct a Star Wars movie later on, or people want him to do the Fantastic Four, which after seeing this, I don't know if Peyton Reed kind of can get to those heights for me.
Yeah, Liz, I'll say this much. As I will defend Peyton Reed and I will defend those Ant-Man films. Yeah. And I actually do think he could do a good job with the Fantastic Four. That being said, I don't want him to touch Star Wars ever again. I just don't think he really, maybe it was the episode he was given. I don't know. But then again, like they were selecting people, obviously they had ideas in mind with what they wanted to do. And
that makes me wonder, how do you think that approach is? Do you think they come to the directors to have them pick the episodes they feel like connects to them, or they just assign them episodes? Like, how do you think that writer's room works in regards to who directs what and, their sensibilities and what they could bring to the table? You think it's kind of just fair game?
I think that it might be a mixture of both. I think there are some cases where, maybe a director like Robert Rodriguez, we haven't seen his episode yet. Yeah. He might come to the table, or they probably approached him, but he might come to the table with, ideas for what he wants to do the episode. And like Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, everyone will take a step back and they'll be like, okay, how do we kind of like insert this into the story that we want to tell? Because they're ultimately the story guys. In this case, they probably went to Peyton Reed and they were like, hey, do you want to do an episode? We got some time to kill here. Which is dumb in a 10 episode series or 8 to 10 episode series. I have no idea how many episodes this season is going to be, but it's not going to be more than 10. Yeah. Why do you have filler episodes? What is the point of it?
It's just strange, man. It is. It really is.
I know. It's really frustrating because just as I thought that we were going on, we were picking up where we left off. We were continuing the journey, the story and everything. And like after a phenomenal opening, which we haven't even talked about yet, I loved the opening to this episode. It was great. Really edge of your seat. It felt very similar to what last week was doing with the Sergio Leone influences and everything like that. Yeah. The beginning of this episode felt like it was part of that that initial episode. And then when we get into the meat of it, I'm like, okay, what's what has this thing sort of become? And it really just like took a detour for the worst.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there. The opening was pretty thrilling and pretty compelling. And like you said, I wonder if it almost felt like Jon Favreau shot that and they just didn't want to put it in the back half of the premiere episode, just kind of carried over to the second one. Then Peyton Reed came in once they kind of picked up the Frog Lady. So it was, like you said, it was a very nice connection from literally, because we speculated, is Boba Fett going to come back into the story? And they literally do pick up immediately after episode 1, but the storyline of that doesn't pick up at all. We have to see what comes of it, which rumors out there that apparently we talked about last week, but Boba Fett TV series is going to be shooting sometime next week potentially, which is just like, I guess they have all their chips on the table with Boba Fett and the story. So, but hopefully, again, I hope that we get more of that character in the weeks to come, because this episode literally had no connection from last week, and I really don't see what it's going to do to next week's episode other than going to the ferry and maybe Sasha Banks and Sabine. So, very interesting episode, man.
Yeah, the thing I'll say, the other thing I'll say about this episode is I don't know if you watched the Clone Wars, the Rebels, or stuff like that, but it reminded me of the episodes that were kind of a chore to sit through for that series. I cut that series a little more slack because there were like over 20 episodes, so of course they're gonna have like some filler stuff and like some weird droid adventures and whatnot. But like for me, this was just like, it was so inconsequential. It did nothing to the overall story. It was boring. That was the other part of it. It was like, I could almost like accept it not tying into the larger story if it was at least, entertaining, like suspenseful or whatever. And it was nothing. It was just they were just like, improvising to fill time. And I just,
they literally took naps in this episode. They took 3 naps in this episode. They were literally sleepy.
Yeah, there were like several times where it cut to black and they're like taking a nap, and I'm like, okay, if you have time to take a nap, maybe you should rethink the story trajectory of this. But like, again, like for those of you who watched Clone Wars and Rebels, you definitely know what I'm talking about. Those episodes where it's just like, you kind of tuned out of it while it was on, and then you moved on to the next episode to get to the meat of the story and everything. And that's exactly what this was. It really provided no substance.
So my question for you and those in the chat, man. So do you blame that on the writer who was Jon Favreau and wrote half of this show? Do you blame it on his writing or the direction of Peyton Reed, or a mixture of both? Or I guess if we were to point the blame at this episode, who would you point it at?
It's a combination of everything. Jon Favreau as the showrunner should not be having episodes like there should not be episodes like this in the series. If you're gonna go longer than 10 episodes, maybe but like in a show, I understand this is part of the appeal, is just sort of like the episodic nature of the series, jumping from like one little mini adventure to the next. I don't know, it's just like it feels like they're just sort of like wandering, and that's just not something interesting for me to watch. Like, I'd rather see story and characters, and we don't really get a whole lot of that here. I think Peyton Reed is fine in the director's chair. He does craft some really good sequences. Like I said, like the chase scene, the X-wing, chasing the Razor's Edge and all that stuff. Like that was good. The spider chase was kind of cool. That was a great little like tip of the hat to the people who watched Rebels and stuff. And then also the beginning, the opening pre-title stuff was really good. Other than that, though, it just I think I think you have to look at what he was given, Peyton Reed. I don't know how much like creative, like how much he contributed creatively to the episode from like a writing standpoint, but what he was given was just it was nothing,
Going back to him as, the Ant-Man director and kind of those films being the more family-friendly, family-oriented type of films, I kind of, like he's mentioned, again, the narrative of like protecting your children, protecting your own, but also to, I guess, talking about Baby Yoda, the kid aspect, the more family fun aspect. I felt like they really, because we didn't get that much of Baby Yoda last week. Like you mentioned last week, he was barely used and just, it was like comic relief last week. But this time around, they really kind of leaned heavily on the, don't get me wrong, I love Baby Yoda. He's adorable. But the, eating the embryos throughout the entire episode, that stick kind of got a little old. Again, him eating the egg, kind of setting that up. And I guess, how did you feel the usage of Baby Yoda in this episode compared to last week? And are you okay with him being, again, kind of the butt of the joke, the punchline?
I was Baby Yoda definitely steals the episode. He's what kind of like keeps you engaged and keeps things entertaining. I do agree with you. Some of the shtick that he was doing did get old, but I also think that it was charming, and it was like they never overdid it. That was the thing to me. They never went off into the territory of just like, and usually that comes from like, you know, other characters talking about Baby Yoda, right? Like the I always forget her name, the shipyard lady, whatever. Whenever she's like talking about Baby Yoda or like making like, you know, like really wink at the camera jokes, I'm like, this is disgusting. I don't want to hear any of this. But when it's sort of like Mando like being a parent to Baby Yoda and all that stuff like that, I think there's some great, you know, chemistry, for lack of a better phrase there. It just helps you buy into that connection a little bit more. So in that regard, I was okay with how they used Baby Yoda, especially because there wasn't really much going on. Like if this was last week and they were cutting away to Baby Yoda and stuff like that, I'd be like, why? This is stupid. But here, you know, it worked a little bit more for me. I don't know. How do you feel?
Yeah, again, I found the moments to be the comedic relief and then bring some levity to the situation. And again, I think they used him smartly, but again, it did get a little bit overused with the continuation. Like I think he ate 3 or 4 of those embryo eggs, and also
he was a dick in this episode.
He was, like, again, it's like, dude, you're the last of your species, and you're just chopping down on these frog eggs, man.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Like, hey, he's hungry, man. This baby you got to feed the child. And that's one thing about Mando. I don't know if he ever feeds him. If apparently he doesn't. He just eats literally anything he comes across. So no, but I think again, we know Baby Yoda is there for the cuteness and the toys, obviously. But
they had to, that was actually the thing I was gonna say. They had to air this episode early on because they wanted to be able to sell toys for Black Friday and everything like that. They're like,
and wait till you get the toy with the baby embryo. That's going to be the next toy of him eating embryos. You can feed your Baby Yoda embryo. That's the next toy, guys.
I'm waiting. Yeah, right. You can have a Baby Yoda that destroys the last of this species.
Exactly.
I'm waiting for the Funko Pop of it inevitably, because they have so many variations of Baby Yoda in that. But yeah, no, I agree. It was sort of like a mixed bag in terms of him, but I was generally okay with what they did with the character. Yeah, for sure. All right, Elliott, any final thoughts here before we start to close this out?
Yeah, again, I guess, like I said up top, knowing that we got about 4 of these type of episodes last season, I guess I was mentally prepared to just kind of ease myself into this, like knowing that we just came off an incredible high of last week. So maybe we can expect to come down a little bit off that high. And that exactly is what happened in this episode. And I think next week, if history repeats itself, we're going to probably kick back into gear. We're going to probably meet an important character. We're going to move the narrative forward. And then probably the following week, we're going to go back to this kind of filler type of approach. So at the end of the day, Peyton Reed had his fun with the Star Wars toys. He had some fun moments with Baby Yoda and the spider and the little Easter egg of Ant-Man. I still a fan of Mando, how he's so resourceful. We saw those spiders chase him down, and he had his fire gauntlet. He had his blaster. He's very resourceful. So to me, again, like I said last week, this reminds me of a kid Saturday morning cartoons, eating my cereal and just having a fun time with these characters. But as far as like critically speaking, as far as moving the narrative, this is what the definition of a filler episode is. And I hope they get out of that next week and we get more of the narrative of, again, Boba Fett, Sasha Banks, and all the characters. Ahsoka Tano maybe get into the mix. So that's what I'm looking forward to as the weeks ahead. But this was definitely just kind of a underwhelming episode for sure.
Yeah, no, yeah, again, it's everything I dislike about this show.
Yeah.
Last week is everything I love about this show. Someone in the chat even mentioned, I was a bit bummed it was only 40 minutes. I think I saw that 40-minute runtime and I was like, oh, it's going to be one of these episodes.
Yep.
But it was actually an instance where I was like, oh, okay, I'm all right if it's 40 minutes, because I was not entertained. I actually think I may have, because the episode's premiere so late, I may have like dozed off ever so slightly for like
a nap with the characters.
Second. Yeah, I took a nap with the characters. I faded to black, came back up, and everything. Yeah, man, I just it didn't do it for me. But I'm hoping that next week they can sort of get back on track. I really was hoping that this was going to be a good episode, because it's like after the week we had with just like the hell that is that's going on right now. I was like, oh, please give us a good episode of The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian didn't deliver. But listen, next week I'm really hoping like we get, like you said, maybe some Ahsoka Tano, maybe tying back into Boba Fett, Bo-Katan, a bunch of other characters that were rumored to be in this, or not rumored, but were confirmed to be in this series. I'll be really curious to see what sort of happens there. But this is definitely one of the worst episodes out of the entire series. And Peyton Reed, I love you. I really do. I wish you the best. Please make Ant-Man 3, but let's stay away from Star Wars. So, guys, that's going to do it for this review of The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 2, Chapter 10, titled The Passenger. Again, be sure to let us know your thoughts and opinions on the episode down in the comment section below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Am I absolutely batshit crazy for being as harsh as I am on this episode? Let's have a great discussion down there. Elliott, thank you so much for joining me. As always, where can everyone find you?
Hey, man, these are always fun. Even when we get a letdown episode like this, it's always fun breaking it down with you, man. But yeah, guys, you can find me here on YouTube at Movie Files, talking about stuff like this, movies, and all things of that nature. So check me out there. And then also on the social media platforms like Instagram at Movie Files and on Twitter at Movie Files Live. But yeah, Griffin, it was fun, man. And hopefully they're not banging and doing all that crazy stuff upstairs all day, man. I hope they take a break sometime.
Yeah, it's okay. Even if they are, I can go other places and do other things. But yeah, that was, as I'm sure you can hear right now, it's not great. But anyways, guys, if you haven't done so already, be sure to like this video, share with your friends, and subscribe to the FilmSpeak channel so you don't miss another review and recap of our Mandalorian show here. We break down the episodes every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So be sure to tune in at that time so you get our thoughts on the episodes and whatnot, along with other great movie related content around here. We like to say the conversation continues after the credits, so we would like to have you be a part of that conversation. You can like FilmSpeak on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, just search FilmSpeak, and if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next week. Take care.